Greetings and salutations and welcome to any and all who have happened to have found this particular YouTube video. Uh, and I think I'm late again. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit past my usual upload time, and so everyone's least favorite procrastinator is once again back onto his usual routine of being late, constantly for everything for not really any good reason. And to make matters worse, the subject I'm talking about today, I think it might already be out of trend. If this can be considered a trend, well, it's a popular show that everyone's talking about, so you might as well call it a trend. But the series we're talking about today is "Please Don't Bully Me, Miss Nagatoro." You know, this video was actually foreshadowed quite a long time ago. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned that I might be interested in checking the series out. I don't remember which video it was. I'm not even sure if it even made it into the final cut. But I did mention that, and now here I am making a video about it. Oh, how the time flies. Now, initially, I checked out the manga because, I'm a loser like that. And so I got 30, 40 something chapters in, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I don't know. Numbers are weird like that. Then I started to watch the anime. Now, my initial concern regarding this was, and this was probably a lot of people's concern, and I already knew about this before going into the manga because I've seen everyone's reaction images, but Nagatoro's facial expressions are quite dynamic, quite expressive, and unique to that particular artist, whose name is Tanashi, I believe. Correct me if I'm saying it wrong. But much to my pleasure, a bit of a weird word choice, but I can't think of a better word, the facial expressions were translated quite nicely into the anime. Now, before we go any further, I almost forgot everyone's favorite segment. I forgot the honorary summary of the show, in case anyone hasn't watched it yet. Please Don't Bully Me, Miss Nagatoro is a show about a girl who bullies her senpai, who is an upperclassman. The girl being Nagatoro and the senpai being called Senpai. You don't actually ever hear his name anywhere throughout the entirety of the show, I believe. Unless I'm wrong and they said it, but I just flew over my head. And that's basically what happened with Monster Musume and how everyone called him Darling or whatever the hell. And I think they said his actual name, but for the life of me, I can never remember it. Anyways, that was a very long tangent to say. That was a very simple premise of a show with a very simple theme. Now, a lot of the controversy I see regarding this show is that it, supports bullying or whatever, and I didn't get any form of bullying from that. Now, granted, in the first episode was quite a doozy, and I believe the first, chapter or two was quite a doozy in the manga, because it did seem kind of pretty cruel, because the main character being the senpai's the main character. I don't know if I insinuated otherwise. But the senpai's the main character, and he was been brought to tears in the first episode on several occasions. In fact, I think he's pushed into, a river or something. And so it seems quite cruel and intense in the first episode, and then it immediately, a slope falls down and becomes, just your standard kind of wholesome-ish. Yeah, I'd say wholesome. I'd say maybe wholesome show very quickly. Now, regarding the whole teasing aspect of the show, it actually has one of my favorite parts in it, because the whole, love interest girl toying with male protagonist isn't really a new formula. It's not exactly groundbreaking. It's happened time and time before. I think the most notable one that first comes to mind is skill teaser Takagi-san. Holy cow! And but it has a similar formula of Nishimura. I think that's the main character's name. Always gets teased by Takagi. And he tries to fight back, but is always rendered, being the one with egg on his face in the end. Now, what I like about Miss Nagatoro is that the senpai isn't always the one with egg on his face. In fact, quite often it's Nagatoro, because oftentimes her schemes involve putting herself out as a form of bait. The first sequence that happens is that they're like she's pretending to be a vampire to scare the protagonist. However, in doing so, she's like basically pouncing on him. And it kind of, her attack's boomerang straight back at her at times. And what I'm trying to say is that her schemes often end up with her being the one taking the most damage at the end of the encounter. Like at the end of the whole vampire thing, she ends up accidentally groping him. Now she still teases him about that later on, but let's be honest, she was the one that took most damage from that. And more encounters like that happen later on the show. Sometimes she emerges victorious, but more times than not, I think it's like a 50-50 ratio, honestly, that she will be the one that ends up getting embarrassed at the end of her little scheme. Now, that's pretty unique to these types of shows, because usually the girl is some sort of like 400 IQ Death Note level mastermind who can somehow render all attacks defenseless and triple down a critical hit attack the main character. But that's not the case in Miss Nagatoro. Nagatoro is just like your ordinary high school girl. She often makes mistakes in the pursuit of like satiating whatever like sadistic whimsy she decides to go on. Now, I use the word sadistic, but I use that quite, casually, because it's not really like, a lot of people equate this to being like masochist and sadist, and like, oh, only masochistic guys will enjoy this show. I don't really think that's the case, because like I said, Miss Nagatoro also, why do I keep on saying Miss Nagatoro? Nagatoro-san often ends up being the one being embarrassed and flustered. It's cute and whatnot. So it's like, anyone can really enjoy this if they enjoyed like the whole love comedy situation that they have going on. So I also don't think that saying that it's a show only for maybe I'm the only one that heard that from someplace. I think I read that from somewhere. It really got in my head, and I feel the need to defend myself now. But yeah, anyone can really enjoy the show if they love comedy. In fact, recently I haven't really mentioned this before, but I've been kind of on like an anime drought lately, where no shows have really like snared my interest, and recently that's been completely being overturned. I don't know what's happening, honestly. It's just that everything seems really, it feels like a new wind. The second wind has caught me. I'm starting to really kick back into it again. And this show is one of the things that really helped me get back into it. Because it reminded me of back in the olden days when I first discovered anime. Because it felt really, it felt like it was trying to do its own thing, I feel. And I really respect that. And, the animation was, pretty damn good. I don't know why it's been so good lately. I feel like the animation's been faltering lately over the years, and now it's being kicked back up again. Taking up another notch once more with zeal. That's always a plus. And now I think it's about time for me to try to poke cons into this show, because that's apparently something I've been trying to do lately, is I try to make complaints for the show to make it seem like I have a level-headed opinion about it, and I try to look smart, but I usually fail. So, cons. I guess, you could make, the argument that I made previously about how, it does seem like she's straight up bullying him in the first episode, or I think it was just the first episode. And, it doesn't just seem like straight up bullying. It pretty much is, and, he does cry, and it's really painful to watch. And that might, turn off a couple of viewers, and to be honest, I don't blame you. It almost turned me off as well, except I thought maybe it will get better, and it did. What's another thing I can think of? You can make the complaint that Miss Nagatoro's friends... I keep on doing it. Nagatoro-san's friends. Why do I say Miss Nagatoro-san? It's so stupid. But, maybe you could say that her friends got a little bit too buddy-buddy with the protagonist a little bit too fast. Especially considering the fact that they didn't seem to have his best intentions at heart when they first met him, when they were, name-calling him. And eventually got more and more severe. But, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's just your standard romantic comedy anime. I mean, you don't really have to think whole lot about it. You turn it on and you watch it and enjoy it. And maybe squeal a little bit at the romantic parts, like a little schoolgirl. I don't know. Uh, Another one I could say is the entire genre of if you don't like school life romantic comedies, just don't even try. Or maybe you should, and this will be an exception, but whatever you say. It's really hard to poke holes in types of shows like this. Maybe it's just a personal bias of how I just really like romantic comedy shows. And that's enough of cons in that little segment that I try to do now, apparently. And now I think it's time for me to wrap the video up. But before we leave, I do want to bust out my tinfoil armor. I think I'm ready to do it now. Because, little known fact about me, I'm overly analytic to a point where I can construe bullshit nonsense out of literally thin air. So, maybe this is all like convoluted nonsense, but I think I'm onto something here. So hear me out for a second. This whole little segment's gonna contain light spoilers to the anime, so any of those who haven't watched the anime and really want to and are really like scared of spoilers, you can turn off the video and come back later if you want to hear what I want to say, or maybe you just don't have to come back at all. I get it. Wait, is it tinfoil or aluminum? Anyways, it doesn't matter what the armor's made of. My conspiracy theory. It's time to bust it out there and let everyone see it. So, in Chapter 11, after the president challenges Senpai to the art competition at the festival, and Nagatoro's modeling for Senpai. And what they're going up against is President and her very infamous art that is basically porn, but it's barely disguised as art. And so it has to be okayed by the school or whatever. I don't really remember the whole situation regarding it. But Nagatoro is trying to combat that by having like sort of etchy drawings of herself done by Senpai for his exhibit. And she's trying to pose and like cosplay and do a bunch of like erotic stuff, and Senpai's heart's just not in it. And then she gets fed up and runs away and whatnot. We've all seen a scene, I think, by now. And he says something I find a little bit interesting. Because as the entirety of the internet won't let us forget, Nanashi was originally a doujin artist, and a very famous one, I think. So, when I heard the word Senpai say, I don't want to draw erotic art, I just want to draw you in your everyday life, it took me by a sort of surprise of sorts. It really made me think about it for a second, because when I heard that, I really, really, like, the words, I don't want to be horny anymore, I just want to be happy, kept on playing in my head time and time again. And I just thought that was a really weird line to write coming from a former doujin artist, or maybe he still is, I don't know. Or maybe it's a she. Anyways, so, and on chapter 12, when President's art was confiscated by the student council president because they decided to reconsider the fact and think it was actually sensual, and Senpai chimed in and stood up for her art. And it also got me thinking of being like, is this his like internal mind of like, is it okay? It's okay to be erotic, but he also just wants to draw like everyday happy life now. I don't know. Like I said, over critical mind, over analytic mind. Maybe I'm just looking into this a little bit too hard and literally drawing like this entire solar systems out of grains of salt. Maybe that's just the case, or maybe not. Who knows? Anyways, that's gonna do it for today, folks. I'm awfully tired. I'm really hot. I'm so glad that I have a horrible, horrible camera because it doesn't have the quality to pick up how much I'm sweating right now. That's gonna do it. I'm hoping I'm on time next time, but I might be incorrect. Oh, and a little recommendation thing. If you like this show, perhaps consider checking out Skill Teaser Chagagi-san. I drew a comparison to that, and it's similar in the fact that it has a girl that bullies the main character and like teases him and whatnot. So if you're into like that sort of dynamics, check that out. There's also another show, but I forget the name of it exactly. It's Andro-san, except it's just a manga. It's just a manga. It's called Andro-san something something something. It's about a Gairu. So, if you want to hear my thoughts on any of the series, if you know what I'm talking about, that Andro-san series, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, write in the comments below. I'm probably gonna make the video anyways eventually, but if you have any other thoughts regarding this video, or if you just have something you want to say, write it down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please consider actually leaving a like on the video, and if you want to be extra super generous, perhaps consider dropping a like. Or not a like, subscribe. My bad. But yeah, without further ado, I think I'm gonna call it for today, at least. I'll see you soon, but for now, farewell.